Start. That's
okay.
Intimidating.
Yeah, that is.
All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. We doing okay this morning? A lot of energy in the room.
Come on, let's kick it up, y'all.
Welcome to session 1 of the breakout sessions. This is session A, and we will be discussing instructing with excellence, balancing student support with health-free boundaries with Dr. Monique Frazier. And before I introduce her, there are just a couple of housekeeping things we first need to address. First off, if you would, please silence your phones or put them on vibrate so they won't be disturbing, and because we are recording this, and so we're trying to avoid external noises. We will be going for 45 minutes. There will be time at the end for question and answer.
A little bit, yep.
A little bit of time at the end, so be ready with those questions. And without further ado, let me introduce you to Dr. Monique Frazier. Dr. Frazier is a former Aggie who received her PhD in clinical psychology in 1998 after completing her pre-doctoral internship at the University of Kansas School of Medicine. She went on to serve as chief psychologist at Logan Regional Hospital's Behavioral Health Unit, and in 2000 began a private practice at Mount Logan Clinic. In 2018, Monique returned to USU as a staff psychologist at the Counseling and Psychological Services Center while maintaining a small practice. Monique loves the diversity of her duties she has at USU, including individual and group therapy, supervising CAPS trainees, coordinating the REACH peer program, serving as a liaison to USU athletics, and engaging in mental health outreach. That actually sounds more like you need to learn how to say no to things.
That is so spot on.
Now empty
Definitely.
nesters, Monique and her husband Lance enjoy mountain biking, pickleball, time with friends, and family time with their 2 sons. I turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. I'm excited to be here with all of you this morning. It's a little intimidating, I will just say, as a psychologist, to present to professors who are experts at presenting and do this every day. For me, it's a little bit more of a side gig to therapy, but I hope to make this a very practical and engaging presentation. One thing that we're seeing at CAPS and hearing a lot from our instructors is the increasing commonality of students coming to you all with mental health issues and high levels of stress. And our instructors either not knowing what to do with that or feeling pretty overwhelmed with that. And so what I want to engage us in today is a conversation, just making some space to consider how you all might navigate this in a way that's best for students and healthy for yourselves, which can be challenging. All right, so let's dig in. I'm going to start out by reading a letter that was written to Carrie Ann Rockmore of Inside Higher Ed. And as I read this, see if any of you relate to this, as I did. Dear Carrie Ann, last week I read an essay about the invisible, unrewarded, and time-intensive emotional labor involved in listening, empathizing, problem-solving, and resource-finding. It described how the offices of nice professors became confessionals where students disclose private information, share secrets, request assistance, present crises, unload emotional problems, and cry a lot. When I read it, all I could think was, ugh, that's me. I'm exhausted and I'm falling behind on my research and writing. I'm ready to make some changes, but I'm not sure what changes to make. Please advise. Sincerely, Warm and Fuzzy. And Carrie Ann writes back, and this is kind of how I want to approach this presentation today, saying, Dear Warm and Fuzzy, your experience resonates with me personally. I'm a 4'10" woman of color, a great listener, and definitely perceived as warm and fuzzy. Early in my career, my office was an unending stream of emotional disclosure. Part of me felt honored that people felt safe with me. Part of me felt like I wanted to be the professor I never had. And part of me cared so deeply about my students that I want all of them to feel seen, heard, and supported in their growth. Despite my good intentions, I quickly burned out because there are personal, physical, and emotional costs to that level of emotional work. Doing this labor in addition to classroom teaching, service, and maintaining a high level of research productivity left me working all the time. So let me say this with love, compassion, and respect. It's time to talk about boundaries. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. This is a little of an agenda for the presentation today, and I'm going to give you a little intro, and then we're just going to get busy and do some work on this together. Heads up, part of this will have a little Kahoot game. I know not everyone's into games, and if you are one of those people who hates games, feel free to sit out. If you're a gamer, I'm kind of a gamer, I'd love for you to join and to entice you, and in the spirit of the Olympics, of which I've been watching way too many, I've got a gold medal prize, a silver medal prize, and a bronze prize for our Kahoot winners, all right? So we'll see who's competitive and who can take the gold. All right. How many, by show of hands, of you would consider yourselves a caring instructor? Would that be a description? Who's a caring instructor? And keeping that hand up, how many of you caring instructors with your left hand have found it challenging to be caring without feeling burned out? All right. Yeah, right? It's difficult. I'm a caring therapist. I love caring professors. My children are now out of college, but you all are the kind of people I hope that my children will have access to. People who have skin in the game, who really make it personal to have a positive impact on our students. So I want to say thank you for that and hats off for that. I also want to help with this boundary piece, because for us warm and fuzzies, it is easy to get in over our heads, to not say no to enough things, as my bio gave away a bit, and to end up burned out, which we don't want for you. One of the main themes that I notice with this, I think it's easy for us to kind of be pretty black and white about it, of like, well, I can be a caring instructor or I can set healthy boundaries. And I want to propose to us today that we can fully be both, that we can set healthy boundaries and still be caring and supportive to our students with mental health issues. I'm going to whip through this slide because it's kind of one of those that's common sense, and I don't want to read slides to people. Why boundaries? To reduce burnout, also to reduce liability. That's real. There's some warning signs that you can see if those sound familiar to you: being exhausted, resentful, anger, frustration with people who aren't putting in as much emotional labor, guilt. You might think about your own background and your socialization and your cultural background, of how much did that instill in you a value of self-sacrifice, and to what degree. I come from a farm in North Dakota, and our culture is, the worst thing I could have been growing up is lazy. those lazy people. And in North Dakota, my dad was a farmer his whole life. You work and you work hard and you're productive, and a good day is a productive day. And if you work so hard that you miss lunch, that's really great. And if you work so hard, even though you're sick with the flu, that's even more impressive. And so I grew up in this culture of like, more. And I imagine there are many of you who can relate to that, even if you didn't grow up on a farm in North Dakota. One thing I know I have to remind myself of still this far along in my career is that for me to set healthy boundaries isn't just for me, it's for our students. Because for those of you who are over-functioners, which is, if you want an interesting podcast, Google Brene Brown Over-Functioners. She's fun to listen to. If you tend to respond to stress by doing a million things and fixing it and taking care of it, you're an over-functioner. Some people are under, are you guys feeling it? Yeah, you are feeling it, okay. Others are under-functioners that in stress we kind of lock up a little bit and find it difficult to kick in. But we want to watch out for that dynamic with our students, that we don't step in as the overfunctioner, which enables them to underfunction. We want to promote their independence, promote their confidence. We want to model how to set the healthy boundaries. We also in our classes, sorry, my microphone's kind of weighing this down, want to protect class time for learning rather than it turning into kind of group therapy. All right, so the first way we're going to think about boundaries is to consider what is your expertise, what are you trained in, and what are you not trained in. And then the second one that's trickier is scope. So scope is like, with whatever hat I'm wearing right now, what's my role and what's not my role? So we want to kind of be in the yellow zone if, as instructors, we're inside our expertise and scope when we're in our classrooms or in our offices teaching facts or skills that we are trained to teach. When we think about getting outside of this, and that's quite narrow, we'll not make it quite that rigid, but that's an example of being inside scope and expertise. If we go outside of both, an example for an instructor would be you're not trained as a mental health counselor. I know there are professors at USU who do have that training, but let's say you're not, and you basically end up doing counseling or therapy with students in your office or in the classroom. A therapist example, one that you learn really quickly as a therapist to never tell the person you're sitting next to on the plane that you're a therapist. You only have to do it once, and you'll never do it. So you just, like, you're a plumber, you're whatever, you just make something up, but you're not a therapist. But that's an example where if I was sitting next to someone on a plane and they told me something hard from their life, I have the expertise to help them with that, but that's outside of my scope right there. I am a traveler right now. I am not a psychologist right now. And so similarly, even if you do have training in mental health counseling when you're in your professor role, then that's outside of your scope. So you get the idea. So thinking about your expertise and scope. Another way to think about this is to consider boundaries on a continuum. Okay, so I've kind of done North Pole, South Pole, and middle just to give us some anchors. If we go all the way over to 0 with really loose boundaries or no boundaries, in addition to teaching and advising and helping students navigate support systems on campus, we might get into solving their personal problems, advising them on major life decisions that have nothing to do with their academics. We might make ourselves available 24/7. We might essentially be a quasi-parent or a friend or something other than professor. On the other extreme is if we just only teach material outlined in the course, right, and do no more than that. somewhere in the middle. So I would propose that there's not a right and wrong place to be on this continuum. It's different for different people and situations. Middle-ish tends to be healthier, but I want you to think about a number of where you think you might like to be. Middle might be more like teaching the course material, but also giving some advisement around academics, and helping students navigate support, and especially these students with mental health issues that we'll talk about. So I'm just going to have you take a moment to identify a number. Where do you think you'd like to be? We want you to be intentional about where you set your boundaries, and then we want you to be consistent in carrying out those boundaries, which is what we'll talk about next. Everyone have kind of a number in mind, or a range? And another way to look at it is, do I feel like it would be healthier for me to tighten up a little or to loosen up a little bit? What are my tendencies? What do I have to look out for? Just things like that, those awareness basics. So with your number in mind, or your goals in mind, let's think a little bit about verbal and nonverbal boundary cues. So how your verbal and nonverbal behavior, what does that communicate to your students about your boundaries? The first three, I'm going to do all at once, have to do with your door in your office. Do you close your door when you're working? Or do you feel like you kind of always have to leave it open? It's such a metaphor, isn't it? I don't know. Do you get to close your door ever? If you do close your door because you're working and someone knocks, do you just automatically jump up and answer it? Would you ever dare let the person knock and not respond because you have to finish? Doesn't that, for me, that's like, ooh, I don't know if I could do that. How do you answer the door? Do you open it wide, or do you body block the entryway? One thing I've thought about when people come to my door, because we have an open door policy at CAPS, that if we're not in a direct service situation, we do leave our doors open so that our trainees can consult with us. And I end up having a lot of people in my office. So I thought about the difference between, let's say someone comes to my door and says, hey Monique, do you have a minute? I need to consult with someone. And the difference between me saying, oh yeah, come on in, have a seat, make yourself comfortable, what's up, which is my natural tendency, versus saying something like, you know, I've got about 10 minutes until I need to get ready for a presentation I'm doing today. Do you think that would be enough time? So just like subtle differences in how you communicate boundaries make a big difference with students, to kind of let them know what the norms are going to be in interacting with you. This one, do you keep tissues visible and easily accessible? As therapists, we do, because in therapy, it's not uncommon for people to cry or shed some tears. And having Kleenex prominent in the room says, like, hey, it's okay to cry in here. But beyond just tissues, thinking about how your office appears and what that communicates. How many personal items do you have in your office? And again, not that there's a right or wrong. I have a picture of my kids and my husband. It's kind of more back behind my computer because I don't really want it front and center, but I like to see them. That feels right for me. Some people don't have personal items in their office because they don't want to communicate anything about inviting people into their personal lives. So it's just something to, again, think about. What do you prefer? This one I want you to think about. When students disclose personal information to you, how do you respond? Because we very strongly reinforce certain behaviors in our students, or we can also help shift behavior. So if a student comes to me and says, "Gol Monique, sorry I didn't get my assignment in. It's been so hard to study at home. My parents are fighting all the time." If that's a therapy session, I am going to nod and maintain prolonged eye contact, and I'm going to say, like, I am so sorry to hear that. That sounds really difficult. How are you doing with that? If I'm a professor, an instructor, or it's a class student of mine, it might be more like, I'm really sorry to hear that. I'm happy to help you find a professional that you could talk to about that, because that sounds really challenging. And as far as my role goes, I'm also really happy to talk to you about how you might get back on track in my class. Okay. So they're both caring, they're both validating of feelings, but they're different, right? And those subtle communications really guide interactions. The next three are all how you communicate with students. Do you give out your cell number to students? Are you Facebook friends with students? Do you respond to emails in the evenings and on weekends? And again, there are a variety of options with this kind of thing, but thinking about if I respond to students' emails that come in at midnight, what sort of communication does that make around what my boundaries are? And maybe I'm fine with that. I personally tell, like, my students, our pre-doc interns, I give our pre-doc interns my cell number. I do not give my clients here my cell number. And just say, you can contact me anytime. I turn my phone off when I don't want to be interrupted. Here's about when you can expect a time frame you can expect to hear back from me. But just being clear about it goes a long way. And again, thinking about, what do you really prefer? I see nodding. And then finally, what are your touching practices? You know, when you get a student in distress and you care about the student, you know the student, do you hug crying students? Do you pat them on the shoulder for comfort? Do you grab their hand for reassurance? People have really strong opinions on this, and I'm only here to say, let's take a moment to think about how you want to do this. And there are probably, I'm not familiar with USU policies for you all. That's kind of a provost office thing, and that's something very important for you all to be aware of as professors, that you're running your classes within our policies. All right, you guys ready for a game? Let's kick it up a little. And I'm going to try and do this without messing up the technology. One of my helpers coached me up on how to do this smoothly. We'll see how it goes. So you can call up your Kahoot. How this game is going to work are the 4 answer options are going to be the same every time. Let's see. Let me get you your code. Pin will come up here momentarily. The 4 options are going to be instructor, therapist, both, or neither. And a statement's going to come up, and you're going to think about, is this statement primarily speaking to therapists, primarily applicable to instructors, or an equally good approach for both, or an equally maybe kind of bad idea for so neither. All right? All right. Ooh, fun. Thank you. I love participation. Bad idea. Someone's bad idea. I love that name. Okay. How are we doing? Is everyone in who wants to be in? Is it going okay for you other tech-challenged people? I empathize. All right, we'll start it out. There are going to be 8 questions, so it's a pretty quick little game. And I don't know if we'll, oh, here, let's have a little volume. Okay, whoops, sorry. Respond to students' feelings with warmth and concern. Validate feelings. Instructor, therapist, both, or neither. And you only get 10 seconds. All right, so most of you got that correct. Yeah, that's a both thing. Appropriate for both types of professionals. We always want to validate feelings. Okay, we're gonna skip over the scoreboard every single time. Briefly validate student feelings, then pivot back to learning. Instructor, therapist, both or neither. Oh, nice, nice. I'm going to give the next one before I say comment. Solicit feelings and encourage the deep exploration of those feelings. Yeah, you're getting the hang of it. So both validate feelings, feelings matter, but a therapist's role is to dig into those feelings and go deep and explore them, whereas an instructor, you want to notice them, you can care about them, you can assist the student in getting help if there's complexities there, but basically then you're pivoting back to learning is a good formula. All right. Restore students' hope by implementing evidence-based treatment for mental health conditions. Sometimes we get students who are lacking in hope, and we desperately want to help them get hope. But yeah, this is more of therapists are the ones who are trained to implement evidence-based treatments. And you don't need that on your plate additionally as professors to try to have to learn that. I'm a liaison to USU Athletics, and our trainers over there, they're like you all, they're on the front lines with our athletes, and guess who the athletes tell their crap to their trainer when the trainer's taping up their ankle. And it's like a hairdresser, right? They're just untrained therapists. That's who we talk to. And so for all of those frontline people, I think it is important to pay attention, but then to know where that line is that you don't take on treating it yourself. All right, let's see it. At halftime, Izzy is in the lead with Bub and BB right now on the podium, and KP and BC contending for the chocolate. All right, restore students' hope by helping them improve their academic skill set and belief in themselves. Belief in themselves? Oh no, students, okay. Checking my grammar. Yeah, that's, instructors come more from that academic place, but are also very helpful in restoring hope. Learn to recognize when you're the only person who can help a student and dig in. Yeah, I deceived you on that with how I read the question. Some of you fell for it. Why is it neither? Yes?
You're never the only person who can help students.
You're never the only one who can help, and it's a dangerous way to think. And I've thought it myself as a therapist, but I'm the only one they trust. I'm the only one they've told their trauma to. I'm the only one, and it's easy to think that, but we are not the only one. Even as parents, we say it takes a village, right? So we're not the only one, and kind of watch out for that thinking. As you primarily teach factual evidence-based information and skills, be observant of the student's emotional state. So primarily teaching, but also being observant of the emotional state. Yeah, that's our instructors. Main job, teach, but also be heads up about how they're doing emotionally. And our last one, make sure the student knows you genuinely care by being fully present within the scope and expertise level of your role. Yeah, both. Sometimes we feel like we have to show that we really care by giving that cell phone number and saying, call anytime. Or that we have to show we really care by going outside of our scope. But you can show that you really care by, when you're with your student within your scope, being really fully present and helping them that way. So let's see who gets the chocolate. Bub gets the gold. Where's Bub? All right. Nice. Some Scotsman sweets.
Oh, thank you so much.
For you. You are very welcome. Well done. And BB came in for silver for the Aggie Blue Mint. Where's BB? Yeah. Woohoo. All right. And making the podium for the bronze, Crusher. Who crushed it? All right. The Aggie Bark. All right. I'm struggling that the Olympics are over. I'm really kind of grieving it, so thanks for letting me bring a little Olympics in here today. All right, I'm watching time. Script work. Okay, this is where I'm going to want some verbal engagement from you all. I'm going to do a student says X, and I want you all to tell me what would a good instructor response to this statement be, and what would one not be? What would be not within healthy boundaries? So a student comes to you in your office hours and says, I feel so overwhelmed in your class. What would be a nice response to that? Who's going to be brave? Yes?
Let's work together to make a plan to kind of ease some of that.
Yeah, nice. Nice. I like you're joining them. We're going to be a team. I'm here to support you in that. Let's make a plan. Yes? You, glasses on top.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would probably want to know a little bit more about what it is that they're overwhelmed. I like to create a plan, but also to like how can I help, or like what are some of the resources I can recommend?
Yeah. And that's kind of an interesting one, because let's consider this a moment. Let's consider what you maybe wouldn't say if you're trying to tighten boundaries a little bit. A therapist thing, not a professor, would be more to say like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that you're feeling overwhelmed. What's that like for you? Or when you feel overwhelmed, where do you feel that in your body? Those are like therapist things. With an instructor, you might say like, oh, help me understand which components of the class are feeling most overwhelming to you. Is it more tests or homework or lecture? So you can ask a question that again is a little more academic centered versus going super deep on the feelings, but you're noticing that they're saying they're feeling overwhelmed, and also kind of thinking, oh, are they gonna benefit from some mental health resources? Okay. Any other thoughts on that one? Yes.
I think part of it is with what he said is like the tone and what do they want, because if it's said with a tone of kind of a complaint,
yeah,
then there's a wish behind that complaint.
Yeah.
So I was trying to understand that. And is it like, okay, well, you don't need to show up to class, and I'll still give you an A? Does that solve the problem?
Yes.
It's kind of this thing to ask you. I mean, it might be, without knowing more information,
yeah,
a way to get you to adjust the boundaries and the expectations of the class.
Yes.
So that's, I think, important.
That is important, and I think we're going to get at that even a little more in our next question. Thank you. Or I'll tie it into our next one. let's say a student comes to you, they didn't get their homework in for the week, and they're coming to visit you saying, oh, but I've just been super stressed out this week, I'm considering breaking up with my partner. How do you want to respond to that? Who's got a little script to try out? Yeah, Moises.
The acknowledgement part was something that was brought up. It's acceptable to acknowledge, but reference things like how much eye contact, how much of an sort of, it's not really as much of an inquiry as more of an empathy.
Yeah.
That sounds really tough. I hope you're going to be doing okay. How can we help you with class? What's going on?
Nice. I like that distinction of empathy versus especially deep inquiry, right? So I always like the formula of validate and then offer help within your scope. So, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Relationships can be so tough. How can I help you in my class? And then to speak to your issue, we wrote an article about this. It was in the Provost newsletter. If you Google USU Provost challenging times, that has some detail on this topic. But basically speaking, we can have empathy, but we still need to hold the line. If students learn that if they come to us in tears that we're just going to make all the requirements go away, we will all of a sudden have a bunch of students coming to us in tears. It's that thing about being aware of what you're reinforcing. And so there's a little bit of finesse to that, right, of figuring out, it's not that you couldn't ever relax a boundary or give them a little extra time on something depending on what you gauge as the situation, but really overall sending the message that, yes, I'm sorry that you've been under a lot of stress lately. I empathize with that. How can I help you to still maintain, to meet the requirements of my class? And then we'll get to this soon. If your stress or your mental health issues are so significant that they really don't allow you to meet the requirements of this class, let's talk about how to get you the mental health help you need. Which is not just taking away your requirements from the class, it's getting help with your mental health. It's not your fault you have depression, or it's not your fault you have anxiety, but it is your responsibility to treat those things. Did you have a thought up there?
I'm sorry, I missed where you said your article was.
It was in the newsletter from the Provost's office this summer. So I think if you Google USU Provost challenging times, it'll be in there. It should call up under I'm one of the authors.
So real quick, I mean, there could be a student that says this and makes it up. I mean, that's a cynical approach. But the other one maybe is that they want to maintain the relationship and with the professional relationship with the instructor, of just saying, hey, this isn't my best work.
Yeah.
And so they're taking responsibility.
Yeah.
It could be the extreme of like, drop all the requirements and just give me an A because I'm struggling.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that in. How about this? My other professor hates me. You're my caring professor. You got my back. My other professor hates me, and maybe they describe a microaggression. And we're not going to go super deep here because this is Office of Equity stuff and things. But just thinking about, they come to you as something, and this is serious, and it's your role. What are the areas you'd want to stay away from, and how do you help and support this student?
Well, one thing to be conscientious of, if I heard that in our department,
Yeah.
I'd be concerned that they might be trying to sort of triangulate
Could be. That's one possibility.
That professor might just actually be holding some firm expectations, and they're saying that they hate them, but really they're just expecting them to be accountable.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to turn it into like they're unreasonable. And that's not healthy for your relationship in your department.
Yeah, and you don't know when a student comes to you if it could be that scenario or there's a legitimate problem. So if you're, again, you can let them know, boy, this concerns me. I can give you some resources to get support and help with this. And I know we're working on a social climate support team on service now for reports of student microaggressions. There's the Office of Equity for discrimination issues. But again, like that's not your lane, that's their lane. But you can validate concern, but you don't try to figure out, you're not the police of what happened, where does this fall on the many, many options where it could. Okay. Yeah.
Actually,
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to say, like, when we think about all these scenarios, I'm trying to think what I would say. And I struggle sometimes coming up with the right thing, but for me, it's really helpful to just say to the student, thanks for sharing, like acknowledging it, and then explaining to them what my role is, because so often I feel like I work with students that they haven't encountered some of these things before, and they don't even know, like, hey, as instructor, I can direct you to resources. They don't even know I can do that. And that for me is so much easier than trying to figure out exactly what to say. Like my go-to is, my first thing is, thanks for telling me, okay, this is my role. Now let's do the next part. And that is so easy for me when something like this comes up.
That is a beautiful formula. Validate, or thanks for telling me, or that sounds hard, whatever kind of validation, and like mean it. Right? Like that relationship stuff is really hard. Like plug in emotionally. Don't just robot it out there. Students notice the difference or feel it. And then clarify your role, and then resources, which is the perfect segue into, I'm going to skip that one. We'll go back. My depression or anxiety is really bad.
And that's happened to me many times. Like these are my colleagues I work with really closely, and yeah, there have been many times where I've had to say, okay, I can't help you with this. I don't have the expertise. But I know somebody at the university
who does. Yeah. So thanks for sharing that with me. I'm so sorry to hear you're having a hard time right now. Are you aware that there is free and confidential counseling available at USU? I'd love to show you their website, and we could, look at services, or maybe you just give them the website. And I do have handouts there by the door on your way out, by the way, with Cap's phone number and information. Rather than trying yourself to dig into that, things like, what's made it really bad, or you can talk to me anytime about that. It's easy with the caring heart. You want to show up, but the best way you can show up for someone with significant mental health issues is to connect them with a professional. And your statement about the clarifying, to say, like, even when I like to say in my more my teacher role is like, I'm so glad you told me. I'm in this role as your instructor. I'm not in a position to help you with that, but I'm super happy to help connect you with resources so that you could talk to someone whose job it is to help with this. Yeah. Yes.
Could we go back maybe to my professor hates me?
Yeah.
Just a second. One of the issues that I'm sure everyone in here has to deal with if we're carrying professors and the ones students go to, we're also mandatory reporters.
Right.
And we're much more likely to be told things that we do have to report.
Yeah.
And so advice on how we either don't broach it so that we're not in an area where we do have to report, or how we let them know we're going to be reporting.
Yeah.
I mean, those
largely, I would refer you to, you're all required to do your Title IX trainings. For me, I'm a designated confidential resource, which is different from y'all, but when I'm teaching my class, I'm not. I'm a mandated reporter. So the one tip I'll throw out there, and then I'll kind of refer to the Office of Equity, they do a very thorough training on that, is if you feel like someone's kind of about to tell you, you can say, I'm just going to interrupt you a moment and make sure that you know, in my role as your professor, if you do share instances where you've been harmed with me, I'm mandated to report that, so I just want to make sure that you know that. And then if they're like, well, I don't care, yeah, I just want to tell you, and they tell you, then we're back to like, hey, this sounds really hard. It sounds like something that could be helpful to talk to a trained professional about. Would you like me to call CAPS on speakerphone and we can set up an appointment?